What's up, motherfuckers? Gukesh finished the first day of the clutch chess in the first position ahead of Carlsen, Caruana, and Nakamura. Rapid is not the specialist of Gukesh. He plays better in the classical chess. But okay, in the first day he was the best, and I'm going to show us his best game in the first day. A very a good attacking game against Caruana, where he sacrificed a full rook. So no, sorry, a full piece. Sorry, let's analyze the no. I don't remember. Wow, no, but he sacrificed many things. Okay, let's analyze the game. Caruana goes with the. Ah, sorry, I put back the names. One, sorry, so sorry. I put that Gukesh goes with white and Caruana with black. Sorry, I need to trade it. And Nakamura goes. I say I every time fail saying Nakamura and Caruana. Okay, I'm going to say Fabi. Okay, Fabi go with white and Gukesh go with the black pieces. So let's analyze the game. Okay, Fabi opens with c4, e5 by Gukesh, the reverse Sicilian, d3, knight f6, bishop d2. And here Gukesh plays a not common move, yes, a sideline, but who is very interesting. Here he plays a6. Can look strange because, okay, now, I don't know, knight c6 or d5 are more normal, just developing the pieces. But a6 was a hidden move because the idea is that okay now white should solve what knight is going to develop is going to develop the knight to f3 or to c3. The idea is white that if white develops the knight to c3, who is the main move, now play bishop b4, attacking the knight like a Rosolino. And if white goes with knight f3, now he has the idea of d4. Knight d4 and now or knight c6 or d5 are the two options. I analyze a little bit d5. C takes, queen takes, knight c2, queen h5, 93, 96, 96, 93 bishop h3 or bishop f5 with an equal position. So I really like the idea of rookets with a6. I think that is so interesting. Just waiting what your opponent is going to do. So just wait that your opponent develop one knight and depend of what knight develop, may with in one way or another. So very interesting move of rookets. Knight c3, bishop b4, playing like a Rosalimo. e4, closing the position. Yes, this is like a Rosalimo but with with one more tempo for white and with opposite colors, of course. D6, knight g2, knight c6, h3, and here Lucas play a6. So okay, it's a possible move, but here I prefer more the move bishop c5. And you're going to ask why you play first bishop before and later bishop c5, losing a tempo with the bishop. And okay, the people say that you shouldn't move twice a piece in the opening, but that's why when white moved the bishop to b4, his pawn was only 2. But now there is a huge hole on d4. After d4 was moved, there is a huge hole on d4. So now have sense to just take control of the d4 square with bishop c5. And then the correct placement of the pawn is a5, taking the space there, and then bishop d7, sarcasm, and rook e1. That could be a possibility for black. But okay, a6 was fine. But after a3 here, Gukesh fails a little bit because he played bishop c5. I thought 10 seconds ago that bishop c5 was fine, but bishop c5 was fine with the pawn on a5. The problem of play bishop c5 now is that now white can take space in the queen side with b4 with a slightly advantage. So here was better to take on c3 and now b5 pawn sacrifice. This is the same like position that I analyze in the English symmetrical in my series of opening tricks. I'm going to put us there the video if you want to watch it. The trick is the same. C takes, knight takes, and bishop a6. That's the same trick that I analyze in the English with e4. Knight c3 and now bishop d3, not allowing white to castle or push the d pawn. So white should give the bishop a and the light square bishop, and after take. Now d5 open the light squares and black is fine here. So yes, that's the best move. And okay, if black plays d3 like I told in this video, if you manage to play b5 and your opponent should respond with d3, is fine, of course. Just 94, the position is equal. Okay, Gukesh go to bishop c5 and now Fabiano takes Let's place in the queen side with b4, bishop a7, d3, knight d4, d3, knight d4, bishop e3, c6, sword castle. And now comes the first, not mistake, but yes, the first moment that Caruana faced here. The best plan for white was take bishop takes d4, giving the bishop, but instead of that, the a7 bishop is going to be a little bit bad place. And this pawn used to be strong when this pawn are on c2. So, but with the pawn on, on c4, this pawn doesn't control the c pawn, of course. And now after knight b1, yes, I like the white position. b5. There is a game between Peter Svidler and Victor Erdos in Tbilisi 2017 with knight d2 here, bishop e6. Okay, c takes or knight d4 are stronger, but okay, rook c1, rook c8, knight d4, and that's the Svidler game. He won against Erdos. Here c5 was so strong. Here Svidler plays knight b3 attacking the pawn. But okay, let's. Here c takes was the matching move. Takes and now or 92 or a4. But okay, Fabi doesn't like this plan of bishop d4, so he plays king e2, improving the king. Fabi plan was king e2 to play e4. He preferred this plan. So it's logical too. I'm not going to criticize so much the plan. The problem is that black is going to have tactics on g4. But later we're going to see the tactics. Okay, b5, good move of Gukesh, trying to take space. And now again, the best move was bishop d4 and knight b1. Instead of that, Fabiano goes further to attack with f4. Like I thought, but the problem of f4 is now we're going to see some tactics. And okay, Gukesh goes for tactics with bishop d4. It's not the best move, the strongest move for rook a, but okay, bishop d4 was playable. Here, of course, white cannot take because knight g4. So he finally take on d4, but okay, because Gukesh forced Fabi to take on d4. So he finally take on d4, he takes, and finally knight b1. And now, after b takes, now Gukesh doesn't play the best move, but it's interesting too. I, it's, according to the machine, not the best, but White should make many good moves to defend the position. So, okay, in a rapid game, you don't know, you cannot calculate everything in this position, you just play by feeling. So, I, the machine doesn't like so much, but I'm not going to criticize this move because this is an active move. And the machine prefer to place the queen on c7. And the machine say that this is more useful to have the queen on d7 than the rook on e8. Difficult to understand during the game, of course. The idea of queen d7 is that after this piece sacrifice, like in the game, here the black have this strong breakthrough with f5. But okay, all the line is so difficult. I analyze the full line. That knight d2 here was the best. d3, knight g1, bishop takes, king takes, queen a7. Like I thought that the line is so difficult. Now we came to queen f7. The idea is of queen a7 first is queen h5 is coming with a tempo. King g1. And okay, if white wants to still playing, he should play knight f3, knight g5, and bishop h3. But okay, the position is equal. Okay, after so this difficult line, bishop h5 was possible, but this position looked like black should play active now, like bishop h5, like a girl. Rook e8, sacrificing the piece. Knight takes king h1, and now queen f6. And here comes the first Caruana mistake of the game, and will be maybe more or less decisive. Now, of course, the position is too difficult because white have a piece up, and in compensation for the piece, black have one pawn, which is not main purpose, but apart he have this very strong knight on g4 and the full control of the dark squares. White have no control of dark squares. And one day, black is going to play d3, open the bishop, and this king is going to bishop with. And okay, but okay, in general, white black contemplates that this knight, this pawn, later is going to go to d3, this queen, this bishop, and especially the open white king. But okay, white position is defendable. If white plays the good move, he had a good position. 92 was the only good move here. It looks logical. Just develop the knight. But okay, I understand that Caruana wants to just avoid that black open the bishop is maybe queen d3 is the most logical move in the position. Just avoiding d3 because just the black plan. I just open the bishop. So Fabiano move was the most natural. Say your opponent wants to open his bishop, then his very powerful bishop, a bishop that you don't have. Okay, just block it. But we're going to see that queen d3 doesn't work. Knight d2 was the strong move. And because after f3, the machine just play knight d1 and say that okay, you open your bishop, but what you're going to do? And now the position is fine for white. If knight f2, of course you can just sacrifice the exchange. Okay, with white it's clear that if black wants, black can take the rook, of course. But okay, white is fine here. It can look strange, just allowed black to open the bishop, but okay, that's the move. The problem of queen d3, who looks so natural, it's just queen g6 and coming to h5 and h2 with checkmate. That's the problem. Okay, you block this bishop, but okay, you have problem with the two pieces and this king. So bishop h3, and now rook e4. Bishop takes, queen takes, queen takes, and now why have a piece and a rook up? Because in the intro of the video, I was thinking black sacrifice a rook or black sacrifice a piece. No, black sacrifice a rook and a piece. Because now the bishop is going to be open. I thought that this bishop is going to be this bishop is so powerful. It's going to be decisive. So king is one, and now d3. Finally open the bishop. And now Fabi makes a decisive mistake. He can defend the game with knight d4. Sorry, with knight d4. And now the position is equal. Maybe Gukesh should just make a repetition with queen g3 or queen h3 and just make a draw. Okay, why can black can try more things, for example, but you always should make the repetition at the end, or d5, for example, queen g3 and but at the end of the day you should take on g3 and queen h3. And I suppose that Fabiano knows that knight d4 is a draw, and I think that he tries to win with c5 maybe. But now the position is completely lost. Maybe he have no so much time in the clock in this moment. But okay, mm, I think that 94 here was more or less clear. Then it's going to be a 3-4 repetition with queen e3. Because the rook cannot came to the attack, so looks more or less logical that mm, black should just repeat 3 times. So c5 by 5, but just c5 just lost the game because now you lost the first piece and the bishop still be open, so you shouldn't close the bishop, and apart you lost one piece. So now white only have one rook up, apart black now have 2 pawns and the bishop who is going to be open, and you should place a rook on f2. C takes, now black have three pawns for the rook, and apart the rook is pinned. But the huge problem of black is not that the rook is going to be captured. The huge problem is that the rook is pinned. So for the moment, black just can keep this bishop and keep this pin because he can take the rook when he wants. And during this time, the bishop still control squares on the huge diagonal, and the rook is not making nothing on f2. This is more or less like a game that I analyze between Richard Rapport and Benjamin Gledura. And they happen more or less the same. They take on f2 with a knight, no, on f7, sorry, and later he just pin the rook, but without capture the rook, just maintain the pin. Mm. Queen e6, here was a stronger queen f5. If king h2 just take and check and rook here, queen e6. But okay, now Fabi left the pin, so Gukesh should take the rook. Queen takes. At Javi, we saw that Fabiano should lose a tempo moving the king. Okay, black is winning here. Let's understand why. White have a piece up, but black have 3 pawns in control of the piece. And apart the white king is a little bit unsafe. Simply the black king is safer than the white king. Mm. And yes, the pawns are so far, and the rook and the queen can coordinate so well to attack the white king. So that's what black is better, especially because these pawns are so advanced and this rook are undeveloped. Here, c5 was stronger. or rook d8 here. And b3 is not the best move. Because yes, the pawn on b4 is so good because it's covering the square c3. So b3 is not so good, but okay, still winning. Knight c3, rook d8, rook e1, queen c4. And here with knight d4, okay, white is still struggling, but mm, he have options to hold the game. But rook c1 bad move here, or c5 or a5, or better. Okay, Gukesh play rook d3, queen e2, c5, queen e8, check, queen e4. And okay, finally, Fabiano have traded the queens, and I told in some videos that the pawns have more powerful and more strengths without queens over the board. And when you have pawns against a piece, you prefer that there are no queens over the board. But in this specific position, the white king is unsafe. So the concepts are yes, are mixed battle, are battle between concepts. And in this moment, they win the concept of trade queens when you have an unsafe king. So here, white should trade queens. Doesn't matter if black have pawns against piece. Here, white should trade queens because his king is unsafe. Takes. Now, rook d5 was the best move. Can look a little bit passive, but was the best. C4. Yes, okay, sacrificing this pawn, but he knows that white should sacrifice the knight for the pawn or something. But okay, of course he had the idea of advance the pawns to b2, rook b4, rook d2, deflection. You cannot take because I promote. But and here, Fabi made the last mistake of the game, with rook takes b2, entering a rook endgame who is completely lost. The rook hanging used to be the best. Entering a rook hanging used to be the best defense, the best way to defend a lost position or a bad position. Used to be the position where you have more hopes to hold. But in this specific rook hanging, black is just winning because he have an extra pawn, but apart he have an active rook who is going to be placed on a4, attacking the a pawn in an active way. And apart, the black king is going to be a little bit more active than the white king. I told in one video that to win a rook game you should have two of these three things. There are three important things in a rook game: the material, the activity of the rook, and the activity of the king. In this position, I thought that if you have two and your opponent have zero, you are winning. But you used to need at least two. If you only have one of these three things, it's difficult to win a rook game. But okay, let's see this position. This position, black have material, one bona, one the most important thing. But apart, he have the active rook, which is so important. So let's see after rook b7 f6 and rook a4, the black rook is active. And apart, now the black king is coming to f5, who means more material, an active rook, and active king. If you have the three, you are winning. It's so easy. It's easy math. Okay, let's go back some moves to this moment, because here black white have an incredible way to make the draw with many precise moves. Okay, the first is logical. Knight c3 defending the pawn, the defending the promote. And okay, can look that the position is losing, but why can hold with many precise moves? Rook takes. Okay, the line is so long, but I'm going to show us to see how why can hold this position. Looks strange because okay, you could think okay, white have a piece, but this pawn is like have more value than a piece because not more value, but this pawn is so powerful, and the knight should be all the time in the defense of this pawn. So can look like white, black a part of half this pawn have a pawn on a6. If he one day take the before pawn with the king, this pawn is going to promote. And apart, he have an extra pawn in the king side. So look like white cannot defend everything. But yes, white can defend everything. King g6, king a5, king f3, first taking the space, of course. h5, knight d1, and now black best plan looks with f6 followed by g5, trying to create a pass pawn on h on. Okay, black plan looks like is create a pass pawn on h5. Now the white king should go to take this pawn, and we are going to take the b4 pawn and later advance this a pawn. Okay, and that's the plan that we are going to see, but the plan doesn't work. Black white can defend by one single tempo. And the knight on b1, you can never take the knight because he have a route that you can never take it. So let's see the game, knight d2, g5. And here white have a good defense with d4. It's not the only move, but it's a good defense. h6, king g3, king e5, king d4. And okay, here you can try a little bit to take the knight, but you can never go there because knight c3, taking a tempo with the king, sorry. And okay, you can try king before, for example. Sorry, if you yes, the king before was the only try. King there, a5, king e4, a4, king d3, and if king b3, knight d2, of course, and if a3, just in time, king c2, and the white can hold the game. But the rook game is just lost for white. I'm going to show us a little bit the Gukesh technique, but the king technique was just lost. Okay. Okay, he improved the king. He played ace5, covering d4, of course, and taking space. Rook c3. But the one important thing is that the rook is so active on a4. It's controlling this file, is attacking, and is defending at the same time. So this is a very, very good rook. Rook a5. Now the rooks come to defend the fifth rank from some checks. Rook d3. Okay, and Gukesh decides to go slowly, of course. Um, maybe he can play g5 here. The problem is that here, okay, maybe he is scared about some d4 tactics or something. But okay, looks like this doesn't work. Maybe king 4 here. I think the machine is gonna like king 4. But okay, you can yes maybe go yes. I'm not sorry. Rook a4. I'm missing. Yeah, because I was thinking that this position was check for the black king, but rook a4 was strong. Sorry. But okay, just Gukesh decide to go slowly with g6. He shouldn't hurry. He just go, he advanced a little bit more his pawn on e5. Now his rook is more free on d5, and he finally breaks on g5. That's the only plan. White tries to activate the rook, but d4 and rook c3. And now let's see like I told, extra pawn and active king, more active king. So enough to win two things. The rooks are more or less similar. And apart, the pawns are so far advanced. Okay, I only say that three important things are the active of the king, the material, and the active of the rook. But how far advanced are the pawns used to be important too, of course. So rook a3, rook b5, king e4, rook a5. But now rooks have this checkmate idea with rook a2, king f3. Now the material doesn't matter because you have more active rook and a more active king. You have two of the three things. Doesn't matter the material. You only need two. You doesn't need three. Sorry. King g3, and now the defense in the first round here doesn't work because if white have one more tempo, for example, after rook b2, now the position is winning. The defense in the first rank. I don't know if with the sorry, I'm going to improve with the machine because I know that the defense in the first rank with with the G pawn is a draw. Yes, with this extra pawn is a draw too. Yes, I'm not sure if with an extra pawn stalemate or something doesn't exist, but yes, the idea is the first rank defense with the pawn on the G file, sorry, on a knight file or on a rook file is a draw. You can defend in the first file, but with a pawn in the center, this defense doesn't work because black have just space to gain to a2 and this idea. But here, of course, if rook b2 is a draw, but now rook has made a check, takes and king a2 followed by g3, g2, and for one just single tempo, rook has won the game. A very interesting game. Happened many things. The video was so long, like 24 minutes. I'm not going to talk so much because now I talk for 24 minutes, but I really like this game. First, the idea of h6 in the opening of Gukesh was interesting. Later, the piece sacrifice was so active, and okay, and the rook sacrifice was interesting. Why Caruana defend back with c5 instead of 94 and make the draw. And later, the ending was fine to show why this rook endgame is winning and how to win. So Gukesh have ended the first day The clutch says in the first position. And let's see how continues the tournament. Bye bye, motherfuckers.